Alright, I'm assuming everybody can see this. Alright, so it's Star Citizen: A Decade in Review. I have titled it this because it is a thing. It has been 10 years since Star Citizen was first announced. I was 18. Well, after the thing, I'm going to do a recap. So, like, we'll probably, if people want to see this again, I'll show it. And we can move through it. But I'm also going to do, like, a recap of the things that I thought was interesting at CitizenCon, if y'all are interested. But I'm also recording this session, like this part. So, that will also be available later for people who want to watch it. And feel free to, this is super informal, obviously, so feel free to ask questions as such as we go. So yes, it's been 10 years. It's been in development for 10 years, but honestly, it's probably actually had a solid 6 years of development because they've been building their company up and actually getting the resources that they need to actually make it. So, you know, it is a 10-year anniversary for the game, so that's kind of a big deal. And this CitizenCon is the 10-year anniversary of CitizenCon, I believe. It actually might be the 9th CitizenCon, technically, but, you know, if you count the announcement of the game as the first CitizenCon, maybe it's the 10th. So we're going to define some terms for people who don't know anything and get some development stats, which is good. I have a bunch of videos that are linked here, and what I did is all of the very important videos that I've seen crop up over time, I have collected into the slideshow, so you'll have access to that later. You can follow the links and watch videos at your own leisure if you're interested in seeing more information about the game. So important terminology, Star Citizen is the MMO. Squadron 42 is the single-player mode. Cloud Imperium Games, or CIG, is the dev company, and Chris Roberts, also known as CR, is the founder. And in 10 years, the game has raised over $500 million. That is $500 million, which is a staggering sum of money. It has accrued over 4 million accounts, and there are, as of 2020, there were over 695 employees on staff. So CIG is not a small company anymore. It is now a very massive multinational company. They are obviously raising a lot of money. There's a lot of money through Pit, and there's a lot of people who are interested in the game. 500 million does sound like a lot, and it is. However, to put things in perspective, somebody I was watching mentioned that Disney makes that amount of money every, I think it was 16 hours. They make $500 million, and that's Disney. Blizzard makes that amount of money every 2 weeks. So, all things considered, it's not as much. It's not like this is the most well-funded game in all the land. It is a lot of money though. And so, what does Star Citizen promise to deliver? An unparalleled space sim experience, an immersive living universe, over 100 explorable star systems, vast planets with seamless transition from space to ground, and vice versa. Fantastic space combat. Great multi-crew experience, fantastic ground combat, large fleet battles, and low or non-combat occupational activities. And why this is significant is because, points 2 through 9 are essentially all the things that come together for point 1. Point 1 is the end goal, right? Whereas 2 through 9 is all the things that make it up. It is the reason this game is so important compared to other space sims is that none of the other space sims try to do all of this at once. Even games like Elite Dangerous, for example, which is, I would say, the closest game that comes to Star Citizen, they have fantastic space combat. They have 0.5 down. They have space combat that's way better than Star Citizen space combat. But they do not have fantastic ground combat. I don't think they have very much ground combat at all. They have vast planets, but they do not have seamless transition from space to ground. They have over 1 billion star systems, but they're not significant, if that makes any sense. You can't do much in each star system. You can go to space stations, but you can't really... You can go to planets even, but you can't really do much when you get there. So this is a kind of a big deal, like a Star Citizen as an experiment in any case. And I've linked 2 other videos here that are kind of related to these points. And 10 years of development, what has it delivered so far? As of 3.17 dot, that really should say 3 because I got a patch last night. That was 3.17.3. And in my opinion, it has not delivered on points 1 through 3. Now, point 1 needs everything, right? Point 1 needs 2 through 9, so that's going to be a no for a very, very long time. It has not delivered yet on the immersive living universe because the universe is pretty immersive, I'd say, but it's not living. It has not delivered on over 100 explorable star systems. It's very far from it. It has delivered on point 4 very well, actually. Very, very well. Point 4 is a yes completely, which is good. At least 1 point after 10 years is full. 5 is a yes-ish. 6 is a no. There's not much in the way of multi-crew experience right now. There's a little bit, but not much. Not enough to say yes-ish on point 6, I'd say. Number 7 is a yes-ish. Number 8 is a no. And then number 9 is a yes-ish. And we're going to be talking about each of these points. So, immersive living experience. What's the holdup? Game servers are unable to handle the load caused by hundreds of NPCs. And actually, this is not hundreds. Should actually read thousands of NPCs or quanta traveling around the universe, trading, mining, and pirating. But what's the plan? There is, on the way, there is AI subsumption, which is quanta simulation, which will simulate hundreds to thousands of AI NPCs, which will make the universe feel more alive, because in a way it will be. This tech is highly dependent on server meshing. Quanta are actually in the game right now. We do not see them. They're there, but there's only like a few hundred, and they're way on the back end, so you never see them. But apparently, if you go and you trade right now, if you watch each of the trade terminals, the numbers are changing constantly, by a very small amount, but they are changing constantly. And it is because there are quanta flying around the universe on the back end trading. You just don't see them. So, immersive living universe doesn't really get helped by that right now, but they are there. They're just, not enough of them, and they're not visible. Over 100 explorable star systems. What's the holdup there? Each star system requires a huge amount of time to build, curate, and connect to missions and other gameplay. What's the plan? The biggest holdup has been the planetary tech required to easily build planets, and this is actually mostly done. With each star system developed, more tools are built to make this process faster. This tech is also highly dependent on server meshing, as we cannot get another star system without server meshing in a working state. And even with all things complete, this will still take a long time. I think it's likely that the universe will continue to expand for the next 20 years, 20 real-life years. I just can't comprehend how they could get all of these star systems done in the way that they like to do it within a shorter amount of time than that. Now, all the systems that matter might be done within the next 6 years, right? Maybe we'll get Saul, Davian, Killian, Ellis, Magnus, Stanton, and Terra within 6 years. Okay, I think that's doable. And more than that, right? We're also going to get Pyro really soon. So I see this as something that should increase exponentially with time, is what I'm trying to say. Like, the longer we get out from this moment in time, the more systems should be being developed at the same time. Space combat, I'm lumping these together, space combat and ground combat. What's the holdup? Well, actually, there isn't much of a holdup on these. These are both in-game, and they are actually quite good. This morning, you didn't see much space combat, but you did see a lot of ground combat. The ground combat is fun. It's pretty immersive. There are lots of options to use. The biggest problem is the AI. So that's why this stuff is like a yes-ish. And there are also like lots of balancing issues. So what's wrong with it? Combat balance has been taking a huge amount of time. The developers continue to mess with statistics like combat speed, damage, and bullet velocity. This is on a fast track due to it being needed in Squadron 42. There are a lot of updates to this that the community has not gotten their hands on yet. And then the biggest complaints in game are latency related. So this is also a server meshing problem. So really, I should have this technology is dependent on server meshing like I have on almost all of these others. Next, multi-crew and large fleet battles. What's the holdup? Multi-crew doesn't work for a number of reasons. Mainly right now, there isn't much reason to have a multi-crew besides the pilot and turret gunners. Large fleet battles require large numbers of players. It is impossible to have over 110 players on a server at the moment. So what's the plan? A lot of engineering-related gameplay has been showed off in the past, which is planned for 3.19 or 4.0. This will enable a better multi-crew experience. What that is they are putting in engineering gameplay. It's things like, this component has blown out, you need to go and fix it, and this relay has blown out, you need to go and fix that. Think of, you know what I'm talking about. Well, it's kind of like the idea of Star Wars, yeah, like, Chewie's running around, but oh, really? So you had to have people running around? Hmm. It is fully operational. Execute Order 66. So, do you remember that there's a game that does this really well, and that is that one game that we used to play with Nick all the time with the Zeppelins in it, the airships. It's like Lost Corsair or something like that. But Icarus, yes, yeah, that's it. That game did this really well, and that's what Star Citizen's trying to get to. You need to have people running around your ship fixing stuff during a battle if you get damaged. Yeah. Server meshing will enable large fleet battles. It's going to need to be dynamic server meshing, but when it gets here, it will be able to handle a lot of stuff. Number 9, non-combat occupations. What's the holdup? Well, Tier 0 mining and Tier 0 medical gameplay is in, and they are actually both quite good. The gameplay is interesting and more in-depth than Wave the Blue Light over it. So, for example, that medical guy came to rescue me, and he got me up with the med pin, and I was able to hobble my way back towards the door. That was, for all intents and purposes, the Wave the Blue Light. He waved the blue light over me, and I got to get up. However, I had a Tier 0 medical injury. If he wanted to make me combat capable again, he would have had to give me other drugs that exist in the game to basically they're basically stimulants and painkillers that would allow me to operate normally with the Tier 0 the Tier 2 medical injury. Right, so if you want a really good medic who knows, hey, I need to give him Hemazole, I need to give him this and this, right? He can mix up the drugs and give you exactly what you need to stay on your feet without passing out. And that's the whole medical gameplay, because if you dose somebody up too much, they'll pass out. If you don't dose them up enough, they're still going to be suffering from the effects of their injuries. So that's the cool gameplay behind medical. And mining is also much more in depth. Without going into it extensively, it is very interesting. It's very fun. You can blow yourself up if you do it wrong, and you can also. They've also recently introduced new mining implements. Like you can actually EVA out to a giant rock and place this this object on the rock, and you have to set settings on it to make it do something, and you fly back to your ship, and then you mine, which is really cool. So that's really fun. Anyway, moving on. What's the plan? Well, Salvage Tier 0 and Repair Tier 0 are confirmed for the next patch, 3.18. And then after this, all professions will get more in-depth and move to Tiers 1, Tiers 2, etc. And there's no word on farming yet, which I added up. Yep. There's no differences between different people right now, so it's universal at the moment. So you could probably calculate what drugs you need, but it's going to be based on what medical problems they have. So you're not going to know what their situation is until you get up there with the medical tool and scan them. And then you'll be like, oh man, he's got a Tier 2 leg injury, he's got a Tier 1 arm injury, and he's got head trauma. So I need to use this drug, and that drug. And then I need to use a fourth drug to keep him from passing out. Is kind of like the way this kind of works right now. I have never met anybody who does this well yet, but I'm sure there are people out here who have been very extensively looking at it. There are whole orgs devoted to this kind of gameplay, so that would be fun to look into. That would be something that would be very helpful as part of the group anyway. All right, and so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the year in review. The last year has had a lighter than usual number of patches, 3 instead of 4. This is because 3.18 has been delayed until after CitizenCon, which is today. It's likely coming mid-November for full release. That's what our last information on 3.18 has been. However, we were already warned that 3.18 would be delayed a lot. However, even though we've only had 3 patches, many features in the last year are not insignificant. We've had the personal inventory, which completely changed the game. You've seen a lot of that today. It's like a PUBG-style inventory. Selling items back to shops has been a pretty big change. Ship-to-ship refueling has been implemented. Medical Tier 0 has been implemented. Bombs, which are really fun. They're actually at least fun to watch. And large ground-based battles, Siege of Orison. I don't like to point out the events so much because at the end of the day, I see them as very specific developer-caused events that are temporary. However, it was really fun when they had it out. Like, it was actually really cool. It was one of the rare opportunities you got to actually see all of the FPS combat stuff come together. And then server population increased from 50 to 110. And that last point is probably the biggest change that we've seen to the game of all of these. That has made the universe a lot more alive. Just doubling the number of people who can be there. And that's because of performance. They were able to do that because of performance improvements to the game over time. It was excellent. So there's the year in review. That's the main things that we have gotten. And then what's coming in 3.18 and why is it delayed? A lot of features, but most importantly the following. Salvage Tier 0, Repair Tier 0, the Cargo System Refactor, which is going to be a massive change that will touch everything in the game. Similar to the way the personal inventory changed a lot of stuff, the Cargo System Refactor is going to be very, very big. And most importantly, Persistent Entity Streaming, which is also labeled PES, is coming with 3.18. PES, what is that? Why is that important? Well, here's a giant wall of text for you. Essentially, there are 2 types of things to watch in Star Citizen development. There's the flashy stuff, which is new ships, new guns, and new destinations. These are things that ultimately don't matter, but in the short term, make Star Citizen money. Okay? And then there's the actually important stuff, which is persistent entity streaming and server meshing. So what is it? Persistent entity streaming is a core technology which will allow for server meshing. Specifically, PES is the tech which will handle item and object permanence. If you set a coffee mug down in the forest and come back a month later, it should still be there if someone didn't find it. This is achieved by building a massive matrix, which is called the entity graph, which saves the data for object location. This is important because it allows the server to access the data and know where things are. Don't servers do this already, though? Like, for example, Minecraft. If you go and you put something like a box down in Minecraft and you put your items in it, and then you come back, however, like years later, it will still be there. So what's the difference? Yes, but currently, when Star Citizen's server goes down, all of that information is lost. They don't have the backend to support that. But more importantly, and this is something that the Minecraft server doesn't do, the entity graph can be accessed by multiple servers at the same time. In Minecraft, you can only have one server. When that server goes down, everybody goes down. But the way Star Citizen's setting this up is that multiple servers can be accessing this data all at the same time. Not just one or two, but thousands of servers can access the same data at the same time. Multiple servers, what? And by far the largest hurdle that Star Citizen must overcome to achieve number 1 on the list is the development of a new piece of technology called server meshing. This is a unique technology that I'm not aware of any other game ever developing. Without this core technology, Star Citizen as we know it is impossible. Even now, it is not 100% known whether this technology will work as intended. However, a major breakthrough was realized in April when PES was successfully tested for the first time. And this is a quote from Chris Roberts, and the link to that letter that he sent is up above. This was a huge milestone as the state of the universe was recorded to the backend database, and then when he restarted the server, it just connected to the replication layer, which had initialized itself from the database, the entity graph, and continued with the universe at the same state he left it. That may not sound revolutionary to some of you, but I can tell you it was akin to Neil Armstrong taking one small step. Once persistent entity streaming comes online, Star Citizen will be a different universe. Persistent entity streaming is confirmed to be included in 3.18, which is the next patch. It will change the way the game works and operates in a very big way. And how will it change the game? Well, we aren't exactly sure. We know that the consequences of the tech will affect just about everything in some way. Items will persist on individual game servers even when they are restarted. However, there is presently no way to pick the server you want to join. So in 3.18, they've already said you're not going to be able to pick servers. So we don't know how it will work exactly. But player recs will now stay indefinitely, waiting for people to come salvage them. As of right now, we think there will be a lot more scattered items across the Stanton system. But planning it out, like hiding caches everywhere, may not work. Because you can't, like if you take like a box full of guns and you hide it in a cave on Daymar, you log out. When you log back in, you're going to be on a different server. And right now, there's not server meshing, so they're going to be different. One really good example or an analogy that I heard is they're like you can think of the different servers right now as different shards of the same universe. And what happens in the Vegas shard stays in the Vegas shard, right? You have to, if you want to go access those items again, you have to go back to that shard. And right now, there's no way to choose. So right now, we just think there's going to be a lot more loot scattered across the universe that you can go and interact with. This might work if you are constantly hiding multiples of the object in the same place. It's like signing your name on every dollar you spend. Give it enough time, you'll eventually find one. Still, at the end of the day, it's just a major step towards server meshing. The game has always been called the Persistent Universe, or PU, so it's exciting to finally be getting some of that. In conclusion, Star Citizen has been in development for 10 years, and it is still very far from completion. That said, I'm hopeful about the future, as we are finally beginning to see some of the long-awaited features come down the pipe. Persistent entity streaming is a major step forward, and by the time 4.0 comes out, Star Citizen will be far closer to the game we imagined when it was first pitched. By 4.0, it will finally be time to begin investing real time into playing the game and striking out into the universe. And then some minor Dreadnought news. Back in 2016, we decided on which system to claim as our home, and we decided on Pyro. In 4.0, we will get to explore that system in detail and work out long-term survival there. So I'm looking forward to that. And then here's the intermission. Right, hopefully. All right, so technically, I was supposed to start that at 10, and then start this at 10:30. So I'll go ahead and start this now. This is now the presentation. So this is a separate presentation, but these are things to watch out for at CitizenCon. And here's the kind of the schedule of events. It's going to begin at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard. That is currently 25 minutes away. The first panel will be Planetary Pyro, then Designs Brief, Investigations, the new Underground, the need for multiple speeds, Lorville Redux, and Power Play. And then the last one's going to be called Talking Ship, as opposed to Talking Shop. CitizenCon should be very interesting this year. By this time next year, 4.0 should be out, though it may not be as Star Citizen development goes, right? This is why this year's con is called Journey to 4.0, right? 4.0 will include the first new star system, Pyro, and should also include Tier 0 of server meshing. 4.0 is the beginning of what Star Citizen is supposed to be. So we're going to talk about each of the individual panels, and then if you see a yellow asterisk, it means that I'm especially looking forward to that one. So first, Planetary Pyro. We've been told that the design aesthetic for Pyro is completely different from Stanton, the current system. We should be learning what these places look like and what there is to do there. And I'd like to see the environment be as savage and hostile as possible. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to see it be very, very inhospitable to human life. And then the next panel is Designs Brief Investigations. We've been told that there will be a new investigation gameplay in Pyro that will require a lot more thought and planning. I'd like to see it have extremely little hand-holding, even less than... Like for example, in the mission I just ran on the Reclaimer, I'd like to have it have even less hand-holding than that. No indications on where to go at all. I want it to be you have to think about where you need to go and really look around and investigate. That's what I'd like to see. The new Underground, I'm not sure what it is. Some kind of new caves and stuff. It'll be fun, but I'm not particularly looking forward to it. The need for multiple speeds. This should be a very interesting panel. It will discuss changes to the flight system, which from what I understand include variable speed and direction during quantum travel, and lower flight speed and lower flight combat speeds. So they've been talking about lowering the combat speeds for a while, which is supposed to enhance the way that the ship combat works. There's a lot of very avid dogfighters in Star Citizen who are really looking forward to that. They think that's going to be a great change. And then the variable speed and direction during quantum travel is crazy. That means you can literally pick a star and fly towards it. Now, you can't get to that star because only one system at a time right now. You have to go through jump gates to get to different systems. But it means that you can choose a position in space and try and get there. And hide stuff there because persistent entity streaming is coming, right? So we can just say, all right, triangulate a position between Hurston, ArcCorp, and one of the other places, and we're gonna hide a whole bunch of stuff out there, right? So many million miles from ArcCorp, so many million miles from Stanton, from Crusader, so many million miles from Crusader L2. And then you can go out there and you can just hide stuff there. That would be really cool. So I want to see that. I want to see variable speed and direction during quantum travel. And I'd like to see the effects of the lower flight combat speeds. Lorville Redux, talking about an update of Lorville. They're going to do a rework of Lorville. Nah. I don't care about Lorville as it is, and I don't really see why a rework would make me care about it more. I would much rather see how Levski is doing, since it was moved to Pyro as it should have been. We haven't seen Levski ever since it was taken out of the Stanton system. So that... Yeah, I know, right? I would love to see how Levski's doing. But I guess they're not showing that. They want to show Lorville instead, so whatever. Power play. This should also be very interesting. This is the engineering gameplay to make multi-crew a thing. So it's a whole panel on that. I'm really looking forward to that. We know that there's going to be relays that will blow out, and we know that the components will blow out. So I'd like to see like just how intensive that gets. I want it to be very complicated. I want engineering gameplay to be like you have to think really hard about what you're doing in the moment during a battle. That's what I'd like to see. You have to have the tools and the know-how. Because that's what Star Citizen is about, right? You don't have a leveling up progression. You have to learn the systems. And that's with your brain. And so that's what I'm looking forward to there. And then the very last one is talking ship. It's not very important compared to some of the other things, but it should be very fun. I'd like to see the Vulture and the Corsair, which are both coming in 3.18. I own both of those. I'm really looking forward to that. We will probably see some stuff on the Banu Merchantman, because that's coming out soon. I would love to see some Polaris, but I doubt it's going to be there. And the hubbub is that they will probably be announcing new ships here as well. I saw some other citizens saying they expected there would be about 2 to 3 new straight-to-flyable ships being released. So that should be fun. All right, overall, this is the last slide, I think. What to keep your eye on. And what you want to keep your eye on is the ball. Where is persistent entity streaming and server meshing at? These are the only things that matter. All the other stuff, like talking ship, that's a flashy stuff. Power play, not so much. There's some important stuff there. Lorville Redux, that's flashy. Need for multiple speeds, that's important. New Underground, flashy. Investigations, at the end of the day, flashy. Planetary Pyro, we've seen some of it before. At the end of the day, somewhat flashy. But what's important is persistent entity streaming and server meshing. I would like to see them mention it at all. It doesn't sound like they will, but I would like to see something about it. How far along is Pyro? Is it complete? That will be in panel 1. So that will be that should be good. Keep your eye out for any hints about the Nix system. It's expected to drop shortly after Pyro. So from what I understand, so if you read the developer updates, all of the planetary tech teams are done with Pyro, and they're not idle, but they were done with it. So they started working on the Nix system. So it sounds like the Nix system should be really far along. So I'd like to see some hints or something about it. We might not get any of that because they might want us to keep our eye on Pyro for now, since Nix is still pretty far away. I mean, we're talking even after 4.0. But, you know, like, I'd like to see a little bit of it. Profession gameplay and how it will be effective in Pyro, specifically, because we know how Profession gameplay works in Stanton, relatively, but in Pyro, it's supposed to be much more exaggerated. What will the mining, salvage, refueling, medical gameplay, how will they work there? Because right now, in Stanton, you don't need to refuel anybody because everybody's got gas stations everywhere. But in Pyro, there are no gas stations, or at least if there are, maybe 1 or 2. So refueling is going to be a big deal in Pyro. Mining and salvage is, like mining, you should have more lucrative deposits in Pyro, and salvage, you should have more lucrative large wrecks out in Pyro. And then medical gameplay, a medic flying around with a ship that has a med bed would probably make a lot of money in Pyro, because there's not much, you can't hobble back to your local hospital in Stanton, not as easily anyway. And then last, any news on Squadron 42, which is a probably not. They are very dead quiet about Squadron 42. In fact, the last real update that we had on Squadron 42 was probably over 2 years ago at this point. They have been purposefully quiet because, from what we understand, Squadron 42 is very close to completion. So they're doing that marketing thing where they don't talk about it. At least that's what we think. We've been told that it's very close. For example, Chris Roberts actually moved to England to work with the Squadron 42 team to polish it and prepare it for release. Okay. Now he had to move there, but sounds like he's he's staying there until it's done, which is a good sign. Because if he wants to go home, unless it's just for a visit, he has to stay out there. Important stuff I expect to see, if nothing else. Engineering gameplay and space combat balancing. Like, if nothing else, those are the two things that I hope to see. And then that's it. There is our... there is the slideshow.